Mamy taki materiał. Sekret, dlaczego mieszkańcy Tristram w Diablo 1 nie mogli po prostu uciec. To jest mega ciekawe, ja nie mam kompletnie pojęcia, bo to jest totalnie głupie. Bo ja też się nad tym zastanawiałem, ja pamiętam, że jak grałem jako dziecko już w D1, to się zastanawiałem nad tym, że no dobra, mają tak przerąbane, nie mogą po prostu wyjść? Ja rozumiem, że cały przybytek i tak dalej, ale może Tristram było na takim odludziu, że kolejna wioska, jakikolwiek przytułek byłby mega daleko. Chociaż nie wiem, jak to wygląda na mapach. Wydaje mi się, że nie jest aż tak daleko. To nie jest pustynia.
What is the hidden truth behind the townsfolk of Tristram being unable to escape the town without being slaughtered in Diablo 1? And why, if the people of Tristram could easily have been killed at any given moment, as seen in Diablo 2, were they seemingly allowed to live?
Help!
And perhaps more importantly, why would any of the residents of Tristram choose to stay in the cursed town, risking torture and damnation at the hands of the Lord of Terror himself?
Uwielbiam filmiki tego gościa, uwielbiam filmy tego gościa.
Although the sleepy hamlet of Tristram, at least to the player, is a place of respite from the horrors beneath the cathedral, we know due to dialogue that the residents, not even the children, were safe during the Lord of Terror's occupation.
Dzieci były bezpieczne.
No, you can't let me go back.
Widzieliśmy to po Wircie w Diablo 2, co nie?
I won't let you take me. Too much pain. Too many dead. Can't get the blood out of my eyes. My mouth.
And when first playing the game, I remember wondering, why don't
Nie pamiętam tego dialogu całkowicie. Mocny dialog.
the people just leave? Well, there is a reason for that, which is hinted at throughout the game and its cut content, and while I will further explore just how the town was effectively quarantined by the forces of hell, as we hear whispers of the rumoured murders in the countryside peppered throughout the dialogue, let's first look at the individual residents' motives for staying. First off is Jillian the barmaid, bound to the town by her ailing grandmother, who is unable to travel.
Jillian, my barmaid? If it were not for her sense of duty to her grandam, she would have fled from here long ago. Goodness knows I begged her to leave, telling her that I would watch after the old woman, but she is too sweet and caring to have done so.
Wirt, the peg-legged boy himself, despite his injuries, stays in town due to being sweet on the barmaid Jillian.
I were a few years older, I would shower her with whatever riches I could muster. And let me assure you, I could get my hands on some very nice stuff. Jillian is a beautiful girl who should get out of Tristram as soon as it is safe. Maybe I'll take her with me when I go.
Wirt does seem to want to whisk Jillian away, mentioning as soon as it's safe. However, some residents like Adria mysteriously chose to travel to Tristram, much like the band of adventurers that attempted to liberate the town.
The witch, Adria, is an anomaly here in Tristram. She arrived shortly after the cathedral was desecrated, while most everyone else was fleeing. She had a small hut constructed at the edge of town, seemingly overnight, and has access to many strange and arcane artifacts and tomes of knowledge that even I have never seen before.
Moving on is Farnham the Drunk, who effectively is self-medicating due to his time in the labyrinth and encounter with the beast known as the Butcher.
O, bo on walczył z Butcherem i potem się rozpił po tym przeżyciu. No cóż, jakie Diablo, taki geglarz.
Farnham, he is a disquieting reminder of the doomed assembly that entered into the cathedral with Lazarus on that dark day. He escaped with his life, but his courage and much of his sanity were left in some dark pit. He finds comfort only at the bottom of his tankard nowadays, but there are occasional bits of truth buried within his constant ramblings.
Responsible for much of the healing of the weak and...
No, to już sobie bardziej wyobrażam, no, los tego pijaka. Ja nie wiem naprawdę jak ci w Tristram, po tym wszystkim co się działo i ze świadomością, że dosłownie parędziesiąt metrów niżej odkleja się jakieś piekło i tak dalej, albo przyzywane są demony, to ja nie wiem jak oni tu mogą nie pić. Przecież cała wioska Tristram to powinny być same geglasze.
Confirmed in town is Pepin the Healer, who, according to the townsfolk, is dedicated to his duties at the risk of his own well-being.
Good man who puts the needs of others above his own. You won't find anyone left in Tristram, or anyone else for that matter, who has a bad thing to say about the healer.
And of course, there's Deckard Cain, the mysterious town scholar, who later reveals his true identity and purpose during the final quests of the game.
Perhaps the time has come to reveal who I am. My true name is Deckard Cain, the Elder, and I am the last descendant of an ancient brotherhood that was dedicated to safeguarding the secrets of a timeless
Legendarne
evil.
imię, co?
An evil that
A wiecie, że Deckard Cain to było po dziecku. Blizzard, z tego co pamiętam, zrobił contest przed wyjściem Diablo 1 na nazwę jednego z bohaterów. I właśnie tym bohaterem był Deckard Cain i dzisiaj na świecie gdzieś ten Deckard Cain chodzi. W Ameryce, czy może z jakiegoś innego, na pewno zagranicznie. Taka ciekawostka.
quite obviously has now been released.
We also have Ogden the Innkeeper, also not a fighter, but is rumored to be A, afraid of the murders in the countryside, according to Pepin,
I really don't understand why Ogden stays here in Tristram. He suffers from a slight nervous condition, but he is an intelligent and industrious man who would do very well wherever he went. I suppose it may be the fear of the many murders that happen in the surrounding countryside, or perhaps the wishes of his wife that keep him and his family where they are.
and B,
To nie chodzi ani o dubbing polski, ani angielski, chodzi o imię. Rodzice nazwali swoje dziecko Deckard Cain i zgłosili... Deckard Cain czy Deckard? I zgłosili po prostu to Blizzardowi i Blizzard uznał, że to jest fajne imię. Oni wygrali contest i dostali jakiś dyplom i coś jeszcze, chyba jakieś pierdoły pamiątki. Na bank coś takiego było. I gdzieś to dziecko dalej żyje, no nie? I mówią, że no ma tyle lat co Diablo 1, nie? To dziecko.
loyal to keeping the
Cześć Lockster, witam serdecznie.
townsfolk fed and alive, despite being a non-combatant.
The innkeeper has little business and no real way of turning a profit. He manages to make ends meet by providing food and lodging for those who occasionally drift through the village, but they're as likely to sneak off into the night as they are to pay him. If it weren't for the stores of grains and dried meats he kept in his cellar, why most of us would have starved during that first year when the entire countryside was overrun by demons.
According to what Griswold said, that means the town has been under siege for over a year. But how do people enter, like, say, the warrior and his party, or even, more curiously, the mysterious trading caravans relegated to the outskirts of town?
Właśnie, no bo przecież cały czas musieliśmy, no ci kupcy musieli mieć nowy stok, magazyn, no nie? Tak to, no wszyscy by pomierali z głodu. Nie wiem, czy nie było w New Tristram, w New Tristram, za dużo Diablo 3, nie było w Tristram Huntera żadnego, Huntsmana, chociaż podejrzewam, że tam jakby każdy z tych mieszkańców miasta w tych czasach, w tym świecie potrafił zabijać zwierzynę przynajmniej, no to powiedzmy, że jeszcze by sobie jakoś poradzili z tym, no nie? No ale jakby cokolwiek, zapasy, no nie mają tam górnika, nie mają tam drwali, jest tam parę osób na krzyż, muszą mieć jakieś rzeczy z zewnątrz, muszą coś importować. Nawet w wiki jest. Cain is named after the son of a fan of video games, developed by Blizzard Entertainment. Czyli Cain, a nie Deckard. His full legal name is Deckard Cain Elder, with the first name taken from Harrison Ford's character in the movie Blade Runner. And his middle name is his mother's maiden name. Tak, Blizzard zrobił promotional contest, czyli konkurs taki promocyjny. Wow, w 1990 roku. Znaczy w 95. Dosłownie rok przed premierą Diablo.
Well, what can I do for you? Jillian is a nice lass. Shame that her gamma is in such poor health, or I would arrange to get both of them out of here on one of the trading caravans.
However, we learn soon that even these trading caravans that supposedly keep wort stocked and carry valuable items are not always granted safe passage, and perhaps more importantly, the identity of those who are behind the attacks on the caravans and the townsfolk in the countryside.
This must be what Griswold wanted.
The quest The Magic Rock further imparts
Magic Rock zawsze był na takim piedestale, ja zawsze, u mnie zawsze na ziemi leżał.
clarity on the subject, as Griswold says.
Stay for a moment. I have a story you might find interesting. A caravan that was bound for the Eastern Kingdoms passed through here some time ago. It was supposedly carrying a piece of the heavens that had fallen to earth. The caravan was ambushed by cloaked riders just north of here along the roadway. I searched the wreckage for this sky rock, but it was nowhere to be found. If you should find it, I believe that I can fashion something useful from it.
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.
So
Quest
just who are
piąty
these
level.
mysterious cloaked riders, or dark riders as they're called? And what do they want? Well, it's at the beginning of the game that Ogden reveals the destruction they've wrought, confiding,
Thank goodness you returned. Much has changed since you lived here, my friend. All was peaceful until the Dark Riders came and destroyed our village. Many were cut down where they stood, and those who took up arms were slain or dragged away to become slaves, or worse. The church at the edge of town has been desecrated and is being used for dark rituals. The screams that echo in the night are inhuman, but some of our townsfolk may yet survive. Follow the path that lies between my tavern and the blacksmith's shop to find the church and save who you can. Perhaps I can tell you more if we speak again. Good luck.
and although we find out the identities of other demons that have raided the town, such as the Fallen Ones who grabbed the children and were also responsible for stealing Ogden's sign,
Hey, you that one that kill all. You get me magic banner or we attack. You no leave with life.
it is never officially revealed which race of demons that, or if they were in fact demons and not men, that were the Cloaked Riders, almost as if to conjure an air of mystery. However, we learn in the novel the Order that Deckard Cain's wife and son had been slain by the same Dark Riders some odd 32 years prior to the events of Diablo 1. During the
To trochę już trwało.
book's events, Belial
Mamy bardzo skondensowaną grę.
tries to convince Cain that it was actually Khazra, but Cain sees through his deceit. And why would goat men with their cloven hooves ride horses? Now, the area of Tristram has been long corrupted by the influence of Diablo before the first game's events, seeping out of the Soulstone and into the surrounding area. So the riders mentioned could have been simply bandits, or even adherents to a dark cult that persisted in the area, which
Tak, mogli być to ludzie, na których po prostu wpłynął, nie wiem jak to nazwać, to ten obszar działania Diablo i kamienia dusz Diablo i tak dalej, nie? Bo to przecież skaża, infektuje wszystko wokół na bardzo długi czas i na bardzo dużym obszarze. Ałe, tak! Mogli być to opętani kultyści, opętani bandyci, cokolwiek, co podjuzało ich do po prostu złych czynów, nikczemnych czynów. Bo to deprawuje człowieka.
we also know the Coven had been active for a long time, as it had been moving since well before Adria's coming to Tristram during the Darkening in 1265. Similar to what we see of the Cult of Personality due to Lilith's presence in Diablo 4. However, the Order was published post-Diablo 1, so for all intents and purposes, the race of the Cloaked or Dark Riders is still unknown. And I personally envision something like the Nazgul of Lord of the Rings, hunting down those which their Dark Master bids dead. But then remains
Myślę, że to zamieszani przez terror Diablo, zdeprawowani przez kamień dusz Diablo, który działa jak Area of Effect, AOE, albo kamień dusz już Diablo z tych podziemi Tristram już mógł przemawiać i powoli stosować opętanie, nie? Na niektórych jednostkach, na przykład na tych jeźdźcach.
a further question. Why not just slaughter the entire town from the beginning? The biggest clue that we have may lie in the cut character, more fully voiced and written in the game's files, named the Priest Tremain.
O tak! Wycięte pliki! Znaliście takiego Priesta? Ja kompletnie nie wiedziałem, że taka postać jest.
All I can do now is pray for us all.
Tremain was originally intended to be a priest that was able to travel in and out of Tristram during the events of Diablo 1, something that Cain directly addresses, saying,
Tremain is an occasional visitor to our town and seems to have little problem coming and going. It is strange how at times anyone who tries to leave Tristram is hunted down and slain by the Cloaked Riders, and at other times it is a simple matter to leave. I think it is that uncertain fear that keeps some of us here, but we are glad for Tremain's bravery and luck in keeping some contact with the rest of the kingdom.
So, Cain acknowledges that fear of death stays some of the townsfolk, but why, of all people, a priest should be able to travel unharmed? Shouldn't the Lord of Terror's minions target priests first and foremost?
Mega
There
ciekawe,
may be
no.
direct ties to Tremain's specific quest, where he reveals his nemesis, a demon named Fleshdoom, beneath the labyrinth.
I have had a most disturbing experience that I must share with you, my friend. Earlier today, I was called upon to help one of the men that escaped from the labyrinth. He was deranged, violent, and kept lashing out at all of those who tried to calm him. I suspected that he was possessed by some sort of demonic entity, and so began to drive the evil from within him. After many
Egzorcysta.
hours, I was able to exorcise a demon who called himself Fleshdoom, but the Hellion fled into the labyrinth.
Fleshdoom. Nic mi to nie mówi. Nie kojarzę tego demona z Diablo 2, nie ma takiej super elity. Może w Diablo 3, może w Diablo 4. Ktoś kojarzy Fleshdoom?
You may think that I am mad, but after speaking with the man and battling with Fleshdoom, I believe that the labyrinth has somehow become a gateway to the underworld. As you descend deeper, you may find yourself upon the doorstep of hell itself. Finally, the man who was possessed retained memories of an ancient demon blade named Shadowfang.
Shadowfang! O kurcze, czyli jego miecz to był Shadowfang, elitarny, właśnie nie, normalny unikat w Diablo 2. Miecz dwuręczny, baza two-handed sword. Fajny starterek, jeżeli wypadnie w drugim akcie. Z charakterystyczną grafiką takiego, on tak się rozszerzał na gorzej, ma bardzo piękny wygląd. Wygląda potem też jak Krain Tewomir. No i Shadowfang chyba również, nie no, na pewno również jest w Diablo 1, bo nam wypadł ostatnio.
If you find the demon Fleshdoom, beware this foul sword. While I fear the dangers below grow even greater, you must find Fleshdoom and slay him. Bring the sword to me and I can destroy it, but do not wield it, for its power can corrupt absolutely.
Kurde.
After which we then hunt down, battle, and destroy the demon Fleshdoom. And Tremain reveals.
Fleshdoom's demise is a great good to the world, yet Shadowfang remains. It must be found and destroyed. Do not attempt to use the Demon Blade, champion. It will corrupt and madden any mortal who wields it. I alone can end its dark evil.
After which we find the blade known as Shadowfang.
I can see why they fear this weapon.
We return to Tremain for
Oglądaliście
his
tego
final
questa kiedyś?
exorcism.
Ja pierwszy raz to
Light
widzę.
be praised! You found the cursed Demon Blade. Only its destruction can ensure the safety of us all. Wait, what treachery is this? Oh, it burns! Hellfire consuming me! You
Okay.
must take this to the Hellforge and cast it in before... No!
O kurde, co? I będziemy walczyć w mieście?
Tremain
Znaliście tego questa? Ale fajny quest. Ciekawe, czemu go usunęli. Mega ciekawy quest. Podejrzewam, że coś z kanonicznością. Może coś nie pasowało w lorze. Wycięty i to, co widzicie, tak, to jest wycięty quest. Wow.
a
To
vis-
jest z Belzebusa, tak? Z Belzebuba, może z Belzebusa. Okej, czyli w Belzebubie dalej ten quest jest do zrobienia. Aczkolwiek to jest quest, który miał być oryginalnie w Diablo 1, tylko że go wycięli. Pewnie w modzie Belzebub go przywrócili. Na pewno musimy pograć tego Belzebuba. Dobra, lecimy dalej. Czyli nie ogarnął tego, to niezły egzorcysta.
blade explodes in a fantastic display of gore that nobody could have seen coming.
His Holiness is a wondrous man of great knowledge and understanding. He has shown me many cures for rare and deadly diseases. He brings me books and reagents for my work whenever he can, but I fear that he may someday take on some task that is too great even for him.
Talk about foreshadowing, Pep. But it does beg the question, was this a part of the plan of the forces of hell themselves to allow Tremain to believe he could go in and out of town unharmed, patiently waiting for his soul to be trapped into hells due to his
Możliwe.
entanglement with the demon flesh?
Możliwe, bo tak demony często postępowały w Diablo, nie spieszyły się i mogły go chcieć przejąć, opętać i przede wszystkim ultimatywnie sumnąć Diablo, nie? Tak jak przecież sama droga wojownika, który jest Aidanem w Diablo 1 i staje się potem finalnie Diablo, to też tak z jednej strony można to interpretować, że chodził jak, wiecie, nóż w masło i tak dalej przez te poziomy piekielne, coraz niżej, zabijał te demony, tylko po to, żeby stać się Diablo ostatecznie, to trochę tak jakby został zmanipulowany przez te demony i tak jakby mogły mu udostępnić tą drogę, nie? Ułatwić tą drogę, uknąć plan, no bo tak naprawdę finalnie, co z tego, że ileś tam demonów zginie, one się i tak odradzają, więc może to też był cały plan.
If so, how many other townsfolk are demon fodder, unable to see the dagger that hangs above their heads?
This blade must be destroyed.
I saw the exorcism. It was incredible how Tremain drove the evil spirit from that man's racked and tortured body. I pray that something that horrific never happens to anyone here ever again.
Well, it stands to reason that the darkening of Tristram and the events that transpired were machinations of the Lord of Terror himself, which then begs the question, why did he wipe out most of the town inhabitants and leave just a paltry few to remain enclosed in the township's confines? Well, let's look at the events. 1. Diablo corrupts and enlists Lazarus, the archbishop, who then in turn tries to corrupt Leoric as a host for Diablo himself. The king instead goes mad and is killed by his own men. He then curses his knights to serve his new dark master for all eternity. Number 3. Ulbricht, Leoric's son, is then taken as a pure host for Diablo, as he'd be much easier vessel. 4. The warrior and his companions come to Tristram, find and slay Diablo, and then learn that they are too late to save Ulbricht. 5. After defeating Diablo, the warrior then takes his soulstone and shoves it in his head, and becomes the new Lord of Terror in his attempt to contain him.
Twarz Warriora w Diablo 1 to jest taki Janusz trochę, nie? Patrzcie. To trochę taki Janusz, nie? Wąsior na pół twarzy. Taki Warcraftowy Footman z Warcrafta 2. Bezimienny z Gotika też, no. No to mówię, że Janusz.
Diablo, in the guise of the Dark Wanderer, then leaves Tristram, finally killing its inhabitants in his wake, and seeks out his brothers, and then becomes a more powerful version of himself as he's taken control of the warrior. So it stands to reason that perhaps Diablo sought a stronger vessel than Ulbricht in the end. But instead of doing another botched attempt like Leoric, he decides to take a new willing vessel. But
no, tutaj jak przejął potem ciało wojownika, to na pewno był dużo potężniejszy, no nie? Wyobraźcie sobie, co by się stało, gdyby w Diablo 3 Diablo nie przejął ciała Lee, właściwie nie Diablo, tylko cała siódemka ich, nie przejęliby ciała Lee, tylko na przykład jakiegoś totalnego gigaczada warriora.
How do you make somebody become a willing host? So that he could travel incognito to find his brothers unimpeded, as nobody would suspect a lone man versus a full-blown greater evil out in the open, which was how Diablo and his brothers were caught in the first place. Diablo and his brothers have been shown to be supremely cunning, having eons to plot and scheme, and Mephisto's own corruption of the Zakarum back in Kurast took hundreds of years. As previously shown in the animatic Wrath, Diablo used
To jest świetna animacja. Wrath, tam możecie poznać aniołów. Wyry'atychy, polecam.
Imperius's own wrath or pride against him, and sowed a seed of dissonance between the angels, losing so that he could later win.
So much for your unity.
Oglądamy to zaraz.
The trap at last
Sprung.
is sprung.
Fast forward to Diablo 1, and what would be the best way to make someone a willing vessel, especially if they were powerful? Well, let them win, but not too easily. The warrior's downfall in the end seemed to be his own self-assurity and duty. He willingly took the soul stone in his own head, believing that he could, like no other mortal has, contain pure evil for just one more day. And perhaps that's why Diablo and his Dark Riders left just enough villagers in the town, enough to aid the warrior, yet not too many that it seemed easy, enough demons to test the warrior, but not enough to fell him, or make him believe it was impossible to contain the Lord of Terror. Again, this is just a theory, but it would be a masterstroke of genius, fit for a prime evil.
Many moons have passed since I left the town of Tristram behind me. Since then, I've tried to forget the terrors I beheld beneath the cold earth, and the twisted nightmares that have haunted my every waking moment. There's something dark within me now. I can feel it, driving me towards the east, assuring me that my salvation lies within the ruins of ancient kingdoms. Though I know the way, I know not what perils will arise to hinder my journey. And as I pass through the first gate, I know that the better part of my soul will remain behind. Forever.
Nice. Świetne. Czyli wychodzi na to, że tak naprawdę cały townsfolk, wszyscy mieszkańcy miasta zostali podtrzymywani przy życiu po prostu, żeby mieć, żeby Diablo i wszystkie te sugusy piekła miały żer, żeby miały kogo opętywać, no bo tak naprawdę czym są te demony bez hosta, nie? One zawsze potrzebują hosta. Tak jak Diablo potrzebuje hosta, tak no wiele takich poważniejszych demonów, elit można powiedzieć, też potrzebują hosta. No to co im z trupów? Mogą sobie przyzwać parę szkieletów, undeadów, kostków, nie? A tak to... No bo to też jest ciężkie do uwierzenia, że demony nie wyszły ze skrypty i nie pozażynały tych 7-10 mieszkańców. Banalne, no wiadomo tam, Adria potrafi czarować, Griswold no jest mocnym wojownikiem, aczkolwiek no nie daliby rady, nie?